Mike Bowen. Mike, thank you for joining us on War Room Pandemic.
Steve, it's my pleasure, but I do want to make one slight correction. We are not the only manufacturer of N95s. We're the only surgical mask manufacturer still left in the USA, which that's no small thing because the N95 supply rests on the foundation of the surgical mask supply, and if it collapses, then the N95 supply will immediately collapse.
Walk us through that. Walk us through these masks. How effective are they? Why are they important? And why are you one of the last guys doing this in the United States? We got Rosemary here that just stunned us. You know, we're still depressed because we understand none of our medicines are made here anymore. And in normal times that'd be bad enough, but during a pandemic when nobody's going to work in China, it could be horrific. Walk us through what the mask is, why it's important, and why it's a building block for other things.
Okay, surgical masks have been around for a long time. They started out literally as cloth squares with ties on them. That's what was worn in the 1918 pandemic, and they weren't effective at all. Surgical masks are made to protect the patient from the doctor. Over the generations, they have become a lot better. They filter very well, but Steve, they don't fit super tight. And a lot of people wear them incorrectly. So in a situation where the wearer, instead of the patient, needs to be protected, that's where an N95 comes in. N95s are held to a much higher standard. They are regulated by the NIOSH, the National Institute of Safety and Health. They fit better and they filter better. So if you're going to go into a room of a TB patient, you don't want to wear a surgical mask. You want to wear an N95.
Now, tell us about, you have, what capacity of production actually do we have here in the United States total to make this mask, and what percentage do you guys have?
Well, it's a sad state of affairs, Steve, since 2007. Well, let me say in 2006, President Bush, after kind of getting a black eye with Katrina, how the government handled that, put out what was called Presidential Directive 21. This directive, Bush Presidential Directive 21, it asked HHS, Health and Human Services, to go over America's pandemic plans. And HHS found out 1 year after we did that America's mask makers had left the country. I am sitting talking to you in a 220,000 square foot building, 5 acres under roof. It was owned by a company called Technol, T-E-C-N-O-L, back in the 90s. In 1997, Kimberly-Clark bought this company. And a few years later, they sent thousands of jobs out of the country, and they put the U.S. mask supply under foreign control. Now, the sad thing about it is within that same year, so did everyone else. In 2005, a group of displaced workers, I was the director of new product development at Technol, my business partner and CEO of this company, and friend and hero, Dan Reese, was over engineering and product development and manufacturing. So we said, whoa, all of the mask makers have left the country. This is a national security issue. And very altruistically and very naively, we thought, okay, hey, if we bring this up, this is obvious to us. It's a national security issue. Let's start a company and bring it up. And nobody got it. And then nobody listened. The whole mask market was only interested in price. Now, stop me if I'm going on too much.
No, you're fantastic. Keep rolling.
Okay, well, here's what happened. Okay, so fast forward to 2009. 2007. HHS sent representatives to the mask companies. And what's funny is they called us and scared the crap out of my partner. Secretary said, Health and Human Services is on the line. And he thought, uh-oh, what did we do? Well, they were calling, and here's how it went. Brenda Hayden called. She's no longer with HHS, but Brenda Hayden says, do you make masks? And Dan says, yeah, we do. And she says, no, I mean, do you make masks? And he said, yes, we make masks. And she said, no, do you physically get material in and manufacture masks? The reason she was so incredulous is because nobody else did. Everybody else she called said, hey, we make them in China, or we get them from China, or we make them in Mexico. Okay, so we thought, hey, this is all over. Hey, we've waited a year. We've talked about this story, and now the government's figured it out. So, Steve, then what happened is they came down, and we're meeting, and we're so happy because the government has discovered what we have discovered, this national security issue. And we're in the middle of this discussion, and we're telling them what we can do, and we can build machines, and we can ramp up, and we can help you save the mass supply. And they go, whoa. And they said, Brenda goes, wait, I'm sorry. We only have authority to study the problem. I said, wait a minute. So you're not here to fix it, you're just here to study it? And they said, yeah. Okay, let's fast forward. That was 2007. So in 2009, my business partner and I go to lunch. We're driving back to the factory, and my cell phone rings, and it's 202, and I always answer the phone when it's 202, Washington. And she said, hi, this is Brenda Hayden with the HHS. And I said, yeah, how are you? And she said, we have a situation. And I said, you mean like pandemic? And she said, yeah, this was a few days before it was generally known. And I said, Brenda, I told you this was going to happen. And she said, yeah, I know. Anyway, what can you do? Okay, so, Steve, since then, that's all we get. What can you do?
That was 10. That's 12 years ago.
That was 2007. So HHS, and they gave us a presentation which I sent to you guys.
Yeah.
HHS, since 2007, has thought of this as a national security problem. And Google my name, Google Prestige Ameritech. I've been everywhere for 14 years trying to get people to listen. I've talked to congressmen. I've talked to generals. I've written to President. President Obama wrote President Obama 4 or 5 or 6 letters, and he sent me a presidential proclamation on pandemics suitable for framing.
Mike, this is Jack Maxey.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a real question because it just struck me so hard. I listened to one of your other interviews that you and I had spoken about. What percentage of these masks did your plant actually produce when they were at the top of their game in the 90s?
87%. This factory, it was an American success story. Technol was just a bunch of guys that got together and started a company. And within a few years, they had surpassed 3M and Johnson & Johnson and owned 87% of the masks, the surgical masks. And they were, during AIDS, they invented right before AIDS, they invented the first fluid shield mask, so that really put them on the map. And if you see an orange mask out there, that was copyrighted by Technol back then. And then Kimberly-Clark bought the company. Kimberly-Clark got into business by buying Technol. And then most recently, Kimberly-Clark spun off that business into Halyard. And then Halyard is now owned by... Can I say one thing here that really gets in my craw? Okay. I've been preaching this American-made story since 2007. Yep. Halyard marks its boxes. Product of USA further processed in Mexico. Some clever attorney figured out a way to make that. That's legal, by the way. I complained to FTC. That is legal.
Product of USA, but not made in the USA.
What's the quality of these?
It says product of USA, further processed in Mexico. So an average person would get, hey, this thing's made in the USA, and maybe they must do something minor in Mexico. Maybe they package it. No, here's the deal. They send fabric, rolls of fabric, to Mexico, and it's fully made into a mask in Mexico. Yet, one of my distributors even one day said, hey, Mike, how come you can't make masks as cheaply as Halyard can, or Kimberly-Clark back then? I said, well, I make masks. I make my masks here. I pay people wages. I don't have those low wages. And he said, well, Kimberly-Clark does. And I said, no, they don't. He said, no, it says, and this is somebody who owns a big percentage of the mask supply. He says to me, says right here on the box, product of USA, product of USA made further processed in Mexico.
So what is our status?
Even an expert.
Okay, so Mike, what is our status today? Today, there's a potential. There's a pandemic in China. Okay. It's going throughout the world. You're clearly now everybody is looking around saying, how do I get my hands on an N95 mask, right? Surgical mask. What is your status of the factory today?
The status of the market is there's 200 times more demand than there is supply. My phone is ringing I have it on Do Not Disturb. My phone is ringing every 2 minutes. Every 1 minute, I'm getting an email. I had to change my email address so that I could actually see emails from my customers. We probably make 7% maybe of the mask supply. The rest of it is made in China. Well, the rest, okay, you split it up. We make 7, and then the rest of it, half of it's in Mexico and half of it's in China. But the part that's in Mexico has got reservations and plane tickets to go to China. China has been steadily taking away our mask business. In a few years, it'll all be owned by China. If you go to the NIOSH website, National Institute of Safety and Health, they have a page that shows all N95 respirators, all approved N95 respirators. I want you to look at the number of Chinese respirators. And they sell these things for whatever they want.
Didn't China just
sell a mask for less than I can buy the material?
Didn't China just mandate? I think it was 3M that all production now of the mask has to stay in China so that they can serve their domestic market.
I read that in the Wall Street Journal, and I've heard from several other sources that China is telling their mask factories not to ship masks out. That they actually have Chinese officials in 3M factory. That's according to the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago. So now I can say this, though. Most of the people I make masks for, I'm just a minor player. Most of the people I make masks for import masks from China. None of them has called and said, my China supply is getting cut off, but I can tell you what, they're all really nervous.
Okay, but we only got a few minutes left. Mike, I want to make the case here for you, is that at 7% of the total market, could you fulfill all the mass requests that people going to Amazon or people that need today, if we had no Chinese access, for whatever reason the Chinese needed for the domestic market, how do you meet U.S. demand?
Not now. Too little, too late. Now, we build machines. You know, this factory once made most of the mask supply. It could again. But again, what I've been saying since 2007 is, guys, I'm warning you, here's what's going to happen. Let's prepare, because if you call me after it starts, I can't help everybody. I help the people who were smart enough to listen. MD Anderson Cancer Center and Texas Health Resources. Texas Health Resources is the Texas hospital that had the Ebola outbreak, had the Ebola patient. They're believers. Cook Children's Hospital in Fort Worth, but you know what? Those are the only 3 hospitals, major systems I've been able to get.
Mike, we got to jump. We're going to have you back on the show hopefully early next week. But right now, what do you need either the government to do or private industry, capital? I mean, for you to potentially ramp up and meet demand here in the United States, assuming we have no access to Chinese masks, at least at some point in time. We want to make these domestically. How do you do that? How do people get in back of making these in America?
Well, the CDC needs to get involved, and they need to tell America's hospitals what they've been telling me for the last so many years, that this is a national security problem and they should buy American masks, because they don't believe me. I'm a mask salesman. And the DOD and the VA should stop letting our warfighters and retired warfighters rely on a mask supply that's controlled by a foreign government. But again, Steve, I can't help everybody right now. We're going to help as many hospitals as we can, and then after this thing, we can build machines and help. But it takes months to build a mask machine. We kind of have what we have now. Could we ramp up? Yes, we could. I'm glad you brought that up, because here's why I'm not going to do that right now. I'm out here on my own, and we did that last time. Steve, listen to this. We hired 150 people. We bought this factory. We built new machines. Everybody said they'd stay with us. The day after the pandemic, they forgot who we were. We nearly went out of business. I had to sell 5% of the company to survive in 2011. So I can't do that. I can't put our company in our. I can't. I can't fire 100 people again.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question about the quality of these masks coming from China, or when they did come? And the reason for asking is there was a recall of 9 million supposedly sterile surgical gowns for American hospitals that were made by a rogue manufacturer in China, and they were contaminated with something, who knows what. And also surgical packs with the things that surgeons used during surgery. Does anybody test? Are any hospitals testing what they're getting? They're assuming that it's the same thing, but are they any good?
America's hospitals want to save money. And I'm glad you brought this up. The way America's hospitals buy products, you don't just go start a medical company and try to sell products anymore. It's all rigged. It's GPO, stands for Group Purchasing Organization. They bid these things out. They're looking for the low price. That's China. That's why all this is happening.
And the same has happened with our medicines. Yeah, same thing
And
happened.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
This book tells you why. I don't remember the author, but it's a book called Poorly Made in China.
Yep.
It gets right into the whole Chinese manufacturing psyche, and it's all about appearances. It's not about reality. Poorly Made in China, I highly recommend it. It'll open your eyes.
Mike, we've got to jump, but how do people get? Do you have a website? Do you have a Twitter handle? How do people? I know your email. We're not going to give that out because you're already blowing up. How can people? Because certainly nobody. We want this to be robust and vibrant. That you never have to lay off the 150 people again. It's heart rendering.
Yeah.
Well, how do people get access to you?
Well, I don't need any more access. We're getting far. Our company is called Prestige Ameritech, and it's prestigeameritech.com. I'm Mike Bowen, the vice president. And again, I'd like to say something again. My business partner, Dan Reese, the smartest guy I know, he started this company in 2005, asked me to join him in 2006, and together we discovered this national security issue. This guy is the mask man. He's the hero that is going to, after this is over, he's going to build all the mask machines that are going to protect America. Dan Reese.
Well, I got to tell you, you and Dan Reese are two American heroes, true patriots, and we appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate you. I know you guys are now nonstop, but we're going to continue on the story, and would love to have, if you're ever in D.C., want to have you and Dan in the war room, but definitely have you guys on the next couple of weeks to give us updates on this. I know people are very focused on this story, and particularly this is the heart of what it means to be made in America. So, Mike, thank you very much.
Nobody has listened to us like you and your team.
Well, thank you. That's what we're in business for, is to make sure that American made's for a reason, not just about price. The China price has a true cost to it. Mike, thank you very much for joining us.